Okay, so we're asked to evaluate the expression 5x squared minus 3x minus 2 for the x value equal to a half. So you notice that because x is a half, all we have to do is really substitute each x, this x here and that x by a half. So let's do that. So I'm going to have 5. I'm going to keep a parenthesis. Remember that we're squaring the quantity x minus 3. Let me rewrite that. Minus 3 times this x value that we're going to substitute in, minus 2. So remember, we're going to substitute a half in, so this is where the 1/2 goes in place of the x, and I'm going to put in a half over here also. So now what we have to do is we got to follow the order of operations. So remember that in the order of operations we have to work with exponents before we ever do any multiplications first. So we do 1/2 squared. Remember, 1/2 squared is equal to 1/2 times 1/2. So remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you multiply the numbers across. So we're going to have 1 times 1, which is 1, and 2 times 2, which is 4. So now we're going to end up with 1/2 squared being equal to just 1/4. Now I'm going to rewrite everything else because I'm just doing the exponent operation first. Now if you're pretty good at this, you don't really have to do all the steps, but because I'm explaining it to you, I guess I'm going to have to write every single step. So now over here we're multiplying a whole number by a fraction. Now when you multiply a whole number by a fraction, you want to put the whole number over a 1 and multiply across. So same thing happens here with this 3. You put it over 1 and you multiply across. So then what we're going to be left with here is 5 times 1, which is 5, over 1 times 4, which is 4, minus 3 times 1, which is 3, and 1 times 2, which is 2. And here we have a minus 2. Now you notice that we're combining fractions here. And also, if you take a look at this, we have a 2 that is not a fraction. So it might be good to make this also a fraction. So I'll put a 1 on the denominator of it. Remember, 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2. Now I need a common denominator. And you notice that the common denominator between 4 and 2 is 4. Now how do we get that? Well, if you want to, you can list the numbers or the multiples of 2. Like for instance, the next multiple of 2 will be 4, and then 6, and then 8, and so on. Now if you do the same with 4, you'll notice that 4 has the same common multiple as 2, and that's 4. So that's your common denominator. So here, because the common denominator is already 4, the denominator of this fraction is already 4, I don't have to change it. That's what I wanted. What I want to do is make this a 4. So to do that, you have to multiply the number by 2. Now remember that because fraction, if you change the denominator of a fraction, it's going to change the whole fraction. So what we have to do is we got to multiply the numerator by 2. In other words, we're multiplying by 2 over 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1. So it shouldn't change the value of the fraction, even though the numbers are on the numerator and the denominators are changing. So same thing here. If I want to make this 4, I have to multiply this number by 4. So therefore, you got to multiply the top number by 4. In other words, multiplying by 4 over 4. So now we have here 5 over 4 minus 6 over 4 minus 8 over 4. Whoa, I almost made a mistake on this one. So here we have 8 over 4. Now what we want to do now is combine all the numbers, because remember, when you are adding or subtracting fractions, you subtract numerators but keep the same denominator. So we have 5 minus 6, that's a negative 1, minus 8 is a negative 9, and that's a negative 9 over 4. So this is our final answer. If you want, you can write this as a mixed number. 4 goes into 9 twice, so that's a 2. Remember, this answer is negative, so I'll keep a negative on the 2. The remainder after dividing by 4 is 1. And because the denominator is 4, we keep the denominator as 4. But this is the solution. Either or is correct. Well, I hope you enjoyed